Hola, que Dios los bendiga. Les saluda Miguel. Este es el mensaje de la semana. Y recordándole que Alcance Victoria le ayuda a tomar su próximo paso con Dios. Quédese conectado.
1 Timothy 3. And once we read it, then you can take your seat. Okay, do we have it for me up here on the screens? Okay, and it says, verse 1, it says, "Here is a trustworthy saying, whoever aspires to be an overseer desires a noble task. Now the overseer is to be above reproach, faithful to his wife, temperate, self-controlled, respectable, hospitable, able to teach, not given to drunkenness, not violent, but gentle, not quarrelsome, not a lover of money." Amen. Another version says, if anyone wants to provide leadership in church, good. But there are preconditions. A leader must be well thought of, committed to his wife, cool and collected, accessible and hospitable. He must know that what he's talking about and not be over fond of wine, not pushy but gentle, not thin-skinned, not money hungry. Amen. So why don't you go ahead and take your seats, and we're going to go ahead and get started. We prayed. Amen. Now this scripture here, it's something that has called my attention, because as a young woman that I was when I came out here to New York with only a call of God, and just knowing God had brought us here and God had called us to this city, this is something that has carried me throughout the years. Knowing that it's not because I just followed my husband or because there was a call placed and I just followed it and a need or an opportunity, but it was because God had called me, because I knew that God had selected me for a work, for leadership, for a position or a place where I can make a difference. And this scripture talks about what, if anyone wants to provide leadership in the church, if anybody desires to be to oversee in church, there's various versions of this, and it's talking about whoever desires that, they desire a good thing. But there are certain precautions, there are certain preconditions that one needs to meet in order to become a leader or to be a leader. Now, this retreat here is a retreat that is directed towards leaders. And I know that, we have a lot of women here that when we put the word out, there's a retreat, everybody comes. Women that are not in leadership, women that maybe don't have a position in church, but they're faithful, they're in church, they're serving. And the leadership becomes open to everybody. But it's directed towards leaders. It's directed to those who aspire leadership, those who, God has called you to leadership, and you're on that path to discover that. And I've realized that if you've been exposed, and it draws you, it's for you. See, if you've been exposed to it, it's been brought to you by many shapes, ways, and forms, through your church, local church, through your pastors, through maybe your own personal leaders, through our founders here in our ministry. And it's something that you've been exposed to. It's something that draws you. And I dare to say it's for you if it draws you. I dare say it's something that is pulling you because you want it, you seek it, you're here, you become available. Like Sister Mitzi said, you paid your registration, you're here today, and there's something that draws you and pulls you to all of this. And when we're speaking of leadership, and this is where I want to focus on, is more on those who are trying to accomplish something new in the Lord. Not just play, a bless me and I bless you in church, and, because I know we have a lot of representation here from different churches. I know we have different size churches. I know we have different people and cultures here. But when I'm speaking on leadership, I'm speaking to those who want something new in their life, who want to experience a difference in their life or make a difference with their life. You see, and many times, we've heard it in the East Coast, and like Sister Mitzi said, we're talking from the Midwest this way to the East. All our churches, we have a very small percentage of our churches that are making a difference in our cities. You see, and what I realize is that there is a leadership vacuum. There's a leadership vacuum in our ministry. There's not a lot of leadership. When our founders are looking for somebody to take a city, to replace a fallen pastor, or to take on a new work, there's a leadership vacuum in our ministry. There's a deficiency of people that are really, standing their ground, that are really making a difference in their churches, that can really take on a challenge like that. You see, we don't have a problem with coming together and worshiping, and we can, get real excited here and have, our time of worship, and we could do all of this stuff. That's not difficult. That's not something that we need to maybe motivate you to do or to encourage you to do. It comes naturally. We start to worship. You have great musicians here, great worshipers, and everybody gets, like they say, the youth, they get lit. Everybody's like excited and happy. But when we're speaking of the leadership that we need in our ministry, speaking from someone that's been, exposed to it, someone that's been living it, somebody that responded to that call, there's this function that's needed in leadership, and it's called work. It's called work. You see? And leadership is not just about position. And see, many times, I've been on the East Coast 20 years of my life, which is, I know all of you are doing the math right now. How old is she? Okay, 20 years of my life, all right? I know how it is. You're counting, okay? 20 years of my life, I have seen a lot of people come, and I have seen a lot of people go. I've seen a lot of churches be planted, and I've seen a lot of churches be closed. I've seen it. And when we're speaking of leadership, there is, like I said, a caliber of leaders that we need in our ministry today, in our churches today. If your church is not growing, if your church is not moving forward, if you're just in the same pattern and in the same old situation constantly, there is a caliber of leadership that is missing there. And when we're speaking of leadership, this function, again, involves work. And many times we get complacent and we get comfortable with just the notion or the idea of that I'm a leader now. And we have no idea what a leader is sometimes. We have no idea. We just think, oh, now I'm over somebody and I'm over a ministry. And there's more to it. It requires diligence. It requires application. It's a good work of greatest importance, leadership. Talking about leadership today. The ministry is appointed to open men's eyes and bring them out of darkness to light, from Satan's power unto God. That's what leadership is. Leadership is to open men's eyes, to bring them out of darkness. You see, there's a task involved in it. It's not just about leading an usher's ministry or leading a worship ministry. There's more to it. You can have this tunnel vision, and it's just my ministry, my little usher's ministry, my little nursery ministry. But there's more to ministry. There's more to it. It's not just that little ministry that you are over. And there has to be a desire to be placed in leadership. There has to be. See, if you're going to be in leadership, it has to be a desire of yours. It can't just be something that they just give to you and I got this responsibility now. It's got to be something you want, because if you really want it, you're going to work towards it. You're going to work and carry that caliber that's needed to carry on that leadership that's been handed to you. Now, our founders, our sister Julie, our founders, they've been on this mode for 50 years of planning churches, of envisioning us, of right now, they're sending out teams. We have the Panama team. We have teams going all over the place. As a matter of fact, in our Spanish movement, we just launched out a church to Chicago. And we have missionaries that are going from different churches, and we have a couple of them that are going here. We have a family and a young girl that are going from here to be missionaries in Chicago. And now there's teams. They're being pulled. They're being pulled from different churches, the best of each church, and they're being sent out with their gifts and everything that they have to be able to contribute to the cause. And that's where we're at right now. That is the mode we're in. We're not in the business of patty cake and bless me and I bless you and let's go to another retreat. And how many retreats have we been to? How many have we been to? We've been there, gone there, been back, came back. We went to conference, now we're here. There is more to this retreat. There is more to these events than what we can imagine. There is more. And as we look forward and we see, okay, what do we need? what do we need in this ministry? Well, I mean, we need leadership. That's what we need. We need authentic, real, calibrated leadership in our ministry. Or not, we're going to stay stagnated. If not, we're going to continue in the same old monotonous situation that we find ourselves in sometimes in our local churches. Now, when I was younger, I was exposed to this. I was exposed to it since a young girl of the calling of God, of ministry. I was exposed to it. I was so drawn to it. And my question to you is, are you drawn to it? Or is your heart pulled to this? Why are you here? What has you here today? What is it that's pulling you? You see, because it could be a brotherly, sisterly love, and I'm here, and we could see it as a social, thing. Oh, I'm going to see my sisters from over there, and that's good. We're going to see Sister Julie, the committee. That's beautiful. But there's more to it. What draws you to these places? What draws you to these events or to, your church functions? What draws you there? And I believe that many times, we believe that it shouldn't be us called. It shouldn't be me called. We measure ourselves with the characters in the Bible, with women of God in the Bible, and we say, oh, Noah, we need Mrs. Noahs. We need a Mrs. Moses. Those are the women that need to respond. We need Mrs. Abrahams, but God calls Tamars. God calls Rahabs. God calls Ruths out of us. You see, he's not looking for women that have these specialties and have these ginormous gifts, is the word that I like to use, these gifts that outstand everybody. No, he's looking for the typical, ordinary woman like us. That's what he's looking for. And I ask you today, what are you afraid of? What are you afraid of that doesn't allow you to step into that new level of leadership that is expected of you? You see, and there's many women here, I believe, that are called by God, that are specifically called by God. I know some are called to be pillars in their church. I know some are called to help and sustain the shoulders of their pastors. But there's other of you that are called to ministry, or you are called specifically to ministry, to pastor, to be a missionary, to be able to take on churches, to be able to go to the other side of the world. And many times we don't believe it could be us. We don't believe that we're the person because we're so ordinary, because we're so normal, because we're just another person in the church. But you have to begin to see yourself different. And if you are being exposed to it and it is drawing you, it is for you. It is for you. It is for you. God has called you. God has separated you. And it is our job to respond to this call. It is our job. God's not looking for these perfect women. He's not looking for them. He's looking for the typical you and I. That's what he's looking for. The caliber of leadership that's needed are positive influencers, godly role models, which are wives, mothers, piadosas. That's what they say in Spanish. Holy, piadosas, godly role models. See, many times we misinterpret the leadership that we're supposed to be. But what we need are positive influencers. What is your influence? Godly role models. Are we really modeling Christ in our lives? Are we really modeling that as a leader? Or are we willing to model this? Sacrificial women, sacrificial leadership. That caliber of leadership is needed. And we are to take cities, and we are to take on ministries or take on something larger, way larger than us. This is a caliber that we need. We need a caliber of leadership that's growing, a caliber of leadership that is improving in their people skills. What is ministry? It's people. People. If people annoy you, then you're in the wrong business. I can't stand her. When I see her, like my skin just like chills, and ministry is people. So the caliber of leaders that are needed are women that are improving in their people skills. Not that are always fighting with their sister, not always fighting with somebody. They're in a fight with everybody. I don't know if you have them in your church, but some of them are in my church. They're not here today though. But some of them, they fight with everybody. They can't get along. The caliber of leadership needed is not the bottlenecking ones. The ones that bottleneck ministries. That nobody can get through because then they feel, insecure. They feel, threatened. They feel like someone's going to take their position. We need constant learners. Constant learners. I think that's one of the things that sometimes it could be lost in leadership. The learning. Like, you can't learn anything new. I know. You know everything. Everything. But it's like we have to learn. We have to be open to learn. Leadership is learning, always learning. And mature leaders, mature, seasoned women that can, like Sister Mitzi was talking about yesterday, like the other speakers on the trainings were speaking about, women that are mature, that are seasoned, that are ready, they can take blows from the enemy, that can take hits and keep standing, that are not wishy-washy, that are not here or there. When I want to, I show up, and when I don't show up. The caliber of leadership needed in our ministry today to make a difference is women that are mature. Women that can overcome, that are not taken by their hits and their assaults in their life. And I know this isn't for everybody. I know that. This is for some women. This is for some of you who are selected by God and God has called you. If you're unsettled, if you're pulled towards leadership, if you're feeling the tug and you're always looking at the possibilities, it has your heart. It has you. You see, every time it just, you feel something. You just like, you're uncomfortable. You're in your secular job, you're working, you're dealing with people, you're dealing with the boss, you get paid, you get a good check, but there's always something that is pulling your heart. You're not comfortable. You're not settled in your spirit. You're providing in your home. You gotta live. You have needs, but you're being pulled. And many of you, along with your spouse, with your husband, God is calling you. God is pulling you. God is saying, I have a city for you. You got to respond. You got to take that responsibility in your church. And you have to say, you know what, Pastor, I'm here. I'm available. What do you need from me? And this is a kind of leadership that is needed. And it has your heart. It has you. It draws you. You've been exposed to it. And it's always a pull. And every time you respond to these altars, you're able to feel that pull in your heart. And you're able to feel it in your spirit. And you say, it's me. You say that it's me. I'm drawn to lead. I'm drawn to take a city. And you start to play with the idea that you are called. You start to play with the idea that, you know what, this is for me. This is for me. And the type of leaders, ministers' wives, pastors' wives, missionaries needed for this call, for this type of leadership that we're talking about, it's going to take three things that I want to be able to tell you about today. Three things that it needs for those of you who feel that you're really called to something greater in your life. Number one, a leader possesses a broad understanding of the world around them. A broad understanding of the world around them. You see, as leaders who are going to make an impact and really make a difference, we can't be narrow-minded people. We can't be people that are just completely cultured into one type of way of thinking and one type of way of believing and one type of way of doing things. In a world that we are in now where things are changing and things are evolving, not everybody is gonna think like you. Not everybody is gonna even like you. See, everybody is different. You see? And when we have this tunnel vision and this cultured vision and we're not open to the world around us, of what's happening in the social network and in technology, the generations of the new people that are coming up, the people that have different values that you and I might not have. You see, many times we're so gun-ho, no, you got to sacrifice everything, your family. And then, but there's some people that value family. There's some people that value, they don't want their kids to grow up, without their parents or, just completely abandoned and forgotten at home because the mom and the father are so given that they forgot the value of family. And I know that in the beginning years of our ministry, that was evident with our founders. They sacrificed everything. They gave their children up, everything. They went through a lot. But times have changed, and we have to keep our priorities straight. You can't manage the house of God and then abandon your family, abandon everything else, all for the cause. You have to have a balanced leadership in your life. You have to be able to keep things in order and still, tear it up for the Lord and still give unto the Lord and still lead the house of the Lord in spite of what you're going through and in spite of your crisis in your life. And you see, understanding the world around us, we're going to have the interests of people might not be like yours. People are not, I've noticed that sometimes, that when I have women in leadership sometimes, and people under them don't think like them or don't have the same ideas or opinions about a certain thing, conflict arises. You shut people out when it's my idea and it's my way or the highway. You see, and you don't understand that people have ideas. God's given them a mind of their own, a creativity of their own, an ability of their own, a talent. And God wants to use that, and we bottleneck it, we cover it because we're cultured, because no, this is the way we do it, this is the way we've always done it, and there's no way we're going to change the way it's done. And then that's why we're just stuck there, and we're just doing the same old thing with the same old people, and nothing's growing, and nothing's bringing fruit, and nobody's going anywhere. And we have to have that broad understanding. The world is changing. There's the youth of today, they're going to college now. In our days, we didn't go to college. We barely graduated or barely, got our GED. Nowadays, our kids are being exposed to free college in New York City. They're being exposed to a lot of opportunities to be able to educate themselves. And sometimes we could be close to that. We're close to college. We're close to schooling, and we're not open to the newness of this world that's evolving and growing. And so there's so much competition. The church is in a place where you're competing constantly with what's going on around the world. If you don't have all these lights and shining stuff, then the world has it. The kids are on Instagram and they're seeing it evolve and happen, and they're exposed to programs. And if the church is not relevant, if the leadership is not relevant, then you start to lose these people. They come in and they go out the back door. They come in through the front, they go out through the back, because the church is not relevant. The leadership's not relevant. They're not connecting with you. And so a leader that's going to make a difference, the caliber that we need, is a leadership that has that understanding of the world around them. We have to understand that, like I said, we have to be open-minded, understanding the needs of others, the sacrifices of others, the hardships of others, the empathy towards others. See, many times we don't have that. We don't care about other people's pain or other people, what they're going through. We don't see sometimes what it takes for them to get to church. It's just like you didn't make it, you were late, and you were supposed to be here, and we're so gung-ho and we're so on point. And we have no empathy for people. We chase them out. We don't have that quality of leadership, of understanding, of empathy, of saying, you know what, I understand your husband's not saved. He gives you a hard time every time you come to church. You come to church and you fought to get to church. And you got to come here and be holy. You got to come here and try to, and we don't empathize. And we don't understand. And sometimes I dare say we don't understand and we don't empathize because we've never been through anything. Because we've never hurt. You've hurt in the past. You've hurt in your drug addiction. You heard about there. But you forget the pain that you went through. And we lose the empathy. And as leadership, as people that are going to really make a difference in our respective ministry, we can't lose the empathy. We have to be relevant to that area in our church and in the people that are following us. Number 2, are you still with me? The type of leadership we need, it's leaders that realize they can't lead where they fit in. You can't lead where you fit in. See, and many times this is what happens, that we're so used to our clusters. We're so used to our circles of people. We're so used to our friends and family. Those of you who have a lot of family around you in your respective cities. And there comes a time of separation. You see, there comes a time where identifying yourself and who you are. You can't keep hanging out with the same people as a leader. You see, you can't keep hanging out with the same people you're always used to, that are not going to challenge your mind and your thoughts. The circles we're used to, the people we usually gather with, all that must shift. You can't blend in anymore. You can't be one of them anymore. See, and we have to sometimes take that journey alone as leaders. You see, not everybody's going to like you. Not everybody. So for some of you, it's like, what? I'm so popular on Instagram, Facebook. They're not gonna like me. No, that's all fake. It's fake. It's so fake. People, as a leader, you begin to realize that you will take lonely walks and you'll find yourself in lonely places because you're leading. Because you're leading. If you're always with the same people and you have a whole group of approvals around you, everybody's like, amen, then you're in the same boat with them. No one's thinking higher, no one's thinking greater, no one's going anywhere. You guys are just in the same thing. And many times in churches, as I have a church, I tell the women in my church, they're not going to like you. If you're leading and if you're really correcting and you're really, standing your ground, you're going to be alone many times. And I tell my core leadership, I have my little steering committee, because I follow Sister Judy. I have my little steering committee. And I tell them, I can't make people like you. I can't make people, I can't make you credible. You have to earn your credibility with the people. Not me. You shoot yourself in the foot when you talk like that, when you talk like that, when you say this, when you say that. You do it. I can endorse you. I can say this is a top leadership. They're with me. You know what? They're going to be, following up on you, this, that. But at the end of the day, if you need to earn it, you need to earn your credibility. You need to earn your own respect from these people. You see? And so this is one of the things that we need to realize as leaders, or the caliber of leaders that we need. That you're going to be alone sometimes. That you're going to be alone and people are going to talk about you and people are not going to like you and people are going to say, look at this girl. She thinks she's all that and a bag of chips. Oh, look at this girl. She thinks she knows what she's talking about. She hasn't been here long enough. She doesn't know. You see, but like Job's wife, he stood alone with his own convictions. He stood alone. Job, you guys remember that in the Bible, right? Let's read it. It says in Job 2:9-10, and you can see it on your screens. It says, his wife said to him, are you still maintaining your integrity? Curse God and die. He replied, you are talking like a foolish woman. Shall we accept good from God and not trouble? In all this, Job did not sin in what he said. He was alone. He was alone going through what he was going through. He had been ripped, everything had been ripped away from his life. You've read it, you've seen it, you've heard it. Your pastors have preached it to you countless times. He lost everything. He was completely alone. All he needed to do was curse God. All he needed to do was just, do away with God and just curse him and go his own way. And he had this woman here that said, curse him. He had this woman here that was telling him, you know what, just do it already. What are you doing just still being loyal to the Lord? What are you doing still being faithful to God? Curse God. And as leaders, the caliber of leaders that is needed is this. You're going to have to stand with your convictions. You're going to have to stand with what you've learned, with what you've been taught, with what you know is the right thing to do. And as leaders, many times we're going to face that road that is alone, that road that is lonely. Many times 20 years I've been here. And this might not be a lot for some of you, but for somebody like me, it's been a long time. Because this is not where I'm from. I'm from East LA. And when I came here, this was a culture shock. This was like, whoa, this is crazy. Because this is a whole other culture, a whole other city. I mean, it was crazy. And, and then we came during the holidays. So it was just like, so depressing. And I would call home and then, how is it? What are you guys doing? Oh, we're cutting the turkey right now. And I'm just like, it was Thanksgiving. And then Christmas came. What are you guys doing? Oh, we're all gathered at my mom's house, and we're going to open the presents at 12, And I'm there with my little boy, Josiah. He was 8 months, and he's just there opening a little Lego gift that we bought him, and that was Christmas. You don't have Christmas with strangers. I was here 2 months. And when I came here, it was a lonely time. It was lonely. It's been lonely throughout the journey of our 20 years here. There's a lot of walks that we've taken. The church has responded. We've been able to, to grow a church, and God's been good to us here. He's been very good to us. But I realized that a lot of these walks, they were alone. We had to stand our ground. We had to stand with our conviction and know that God called us. What the decision we were making as a church and leading the church, there was a conviction. We weren't withering back and forth because the people were not in agreement. We weren't withering back and forth because the church didn't want to take that sacrificial step of giving. We would stand our ground, stand our conviction, and say, the Lord says that we need to build this house. The Lord says that we need to give towards this project. And you know, my husband's the type that he'll ask the church for money. He don't hold back. It's like they say in Spanish, sin pelos en la lengua. You know, that's the way it's in Spanish. You know, he says it as it is. We need money for the church. We need to build. It takes a lot of money to have a church in New York. A lot of money, a big budget. And being in this corner is not free. These chairs weren't free. The chairs you're sitting on are very expensive chairs. But you know what it took? It took a church that was sacrificial and gave, and you know, but also it took a pastor to speak with conviction and say, you know what, even if they talk about me, even if they put me down, even if they say you're stealing money, and what are you doing with the money, and where is it going? You stood your convictions, and that's what we need to do. Caliber leadership that has caliber and that's going to make a difference needs to stand on their convictions. They need to have the mentality that Job had, that said, you know what, woman, you're crazy. You're foolish. I'm going to stand my ground and I'm going to do what I need to do. You can't act the way you acted. You can't talk the way you used to. You can't do life as usual as a leader. And many times we're in our ministries and we're doing church, maybe even my colleagues as pastors' wives, we're doing church and we just blend in with our people. We blend in. We think like them. We're all like them. We're so carnal with them. We're just, we don't stand out as a leader in our ministry, in our church, or as a pastor's wife. We don't stand out. We're just one of them. One of them. We're just one of them. And we got to be a step ahead of them. We have to be one step ahead always, 10 steps ahead. And now, you know, we must separate ourselves because we ain't going to fit in anymore. We're not. When you are called by God, when you are called to leadership, when you are called to something different, some of you in the UTC that you're called to ministry, and you're called to greatness, you can't fit in no more. You're not going to fit in anymore. You're just not. You shouldn't. You should be unsettled, you should be uncomfortable, and you should be uneasy. If you're comfortable around the rebellious ones in your church, the negative ones in your church, the ones that don't give in their church, then you're in the wrong place. You should be unsettled with those people. You should be uncomfortable with those people. Be the bigger person. Stand and lead. Think higher. Think bigger. And many times as leaders, we're going to have to make very hard decisions and very unpopular decisions. See? And as leaders sometimes, because we're so afraid of losing the love and the like of people towards us, we don't want to make those hard decisions. You don't want to make those hard calls that you need to remove some leadership in your church. That you need to remove people in positions in your church. Oh, but Sister so-and-so has been with us for 10 years. Oh, she's been faithful. She brings the cookies every Sunday. And we don't want to move people. And you have to have you ever seen Pastor Sonny make moves? Ooh. My husband's in leadership, like, you know, and he sees a lot. He's like exposed to that, like, you know, firsthand. Get that guy out of here. No more. No more. He's negative. He's not making a difference here no more. He's just murmuring, complaining, being negative. He hasn't grown anything. He hasn't done anything. Get him out of here. And let's move on to the next one. Have his church take care of him. But we got to move forward. We got to keep going. We got to keep going. And many times our churches, they stagnate because we're with the same old leaders, the same old negative person. You know, the gang girl that's there, she's the leader because, you know, she's cute and because she's popular. But she's, you know, she's not godly. She's not spiritual. She's in the flesh all the time. She don't respond to what she needs to respond to. But with the pastor's wife, she's just a doll. And we need to move them. You need to move those people because they stagnate your ministry. And leaders, like I said, they need to make hard decisions. You pastors' wives, we need to make hard decisions sometimes. We need to move people that are just bottlenecking. And you know what we need to do? We need to stand up and we need to do it. We need to go back into that pioneer stage and get our hands in there and start working at it again. You got to declare yourself. Ministries don't grow when we're mixed with a bunch. You got to stand out or you're not going to be able to lead. Thirdly, I'm almost done. You still with me? Leaders know they can enjoy great privileges, but pay a higher price. Leaders know this. There's a problem when we think we should automatically change our lifestyles or be granted access to places and things that we haven't paid a price for. See, suddenly you become a leader, you take a city, you're licensed now, and you just think that you're just entitled to this stuff. You took a role on in your church. You're the gang leader now. You're whatever in your church. You're moving forward. And we think we're entitled to stuff. We think that we deserve things. And we haven't paid a price yet. We haven't been there long enough. And when we're looking at this type of leaders, we got to know that we can enjoy great privileges. There's a lot of perks to ministry. There's a lot of perks to pastoring. There's a lot of perks to it. People love on you. People, respect you. People open doors for you. People, they accommodate you. They take care of you. But the thing about this is that there's a price that has to be paid sometimes. There's a price that has to be paid to be able to enjoy these things. When there is success, blessings, and privileges you aren't seeking follow you. When there's success in your leadership, when there's success in your ministry, when there's success in what you're doing, blessings will follow you. That's what the Word of God tells us. The pain that we see that privileges of being in circles you never thought you'd be in. See, you ever been in a room and you're like, oh my God, I can't believe I'm in here. I can't believe I'm here. Like, oh my God. Some of you that desire to be around Sister Julie or, the committee, like, oh my God, I can't believe I'm in here. Like, oh my God, what am I going to say? What am I going to do? And there are privileges that you get. Getting into green rooms, meetings, and groups you never imagined. Ooh, I'm with the pastor. I'm having coffee with the pastor. They're privileges that we get. The benefits that you see many of your leaders have, you can enjoy these things. But we never can lose the willingness to pioneer again, to work harder. You see, and the caliber of leadership I'm talking about is that you can enjoy these privileges. You can enjoy them as you're paying a price or as you've paid a price. But we can't ever just say, oh, I'm not gonna pay the price no more. I'm not gonna work hard anymore because I've been here long enough, because I've done it for so many years. Or, they know me already and I'm just like the church mother in the church. And so, we have to always be willing to pay a bigger price. Paying the price, a higher price of pain, paying the higher price of disillusionment, of discouragement, of living in a fishbowl. That's what a leader is. You see, you're going to pay a higher price. You're going to pay a price of being disillusioned, of being discouraged, but it's going to be a higher price. It's not going to be just a price because you didn't want to come to church and you're just, it's going to be a higher price of the enemy hitting your home, the enemy hitting your children, the enemy hitting your health. These are prices that you're going to pay as a leader. You see, of living your life in a fishbowl. A fishbowl, it's like, this ain't a bowl, but if you were in here, everybody's looking at you. And I always tell the girls, the leaders with me, I go, your life, you think mine isn't a fishbowl, yours is too, because they're looking at you. I say, you're in here, and everybody's looking at what you're doing. How you worship, how you talk, how you lead, what you're doing, how you sit, how you make your faces, everything, how you fix your hair, everything. And they're looking at you, and our life is a fishbowl, leader. And you gotta be, if you really want leadership, if you're really drawn to it, then you gotta be ready for this. And many times we're not ready for this. We're like, oh, I don't want to be that leader. I don't want to be that woman. I don't want to be, people looking at me and being exposed that way. I'm private. I don't want nobody to see me. I'm just a private person. But no, we have to be the women that are willing to be in the fishbowl. That are willing, and because it comes with the price. It's a price to be in a fishbowl. You're criticized for not doing anything, and you're criticized for doing something. I mean, there's just never a fair game. There's always something. And we always have to be like this, sacrificing your kids, sacrificing your time, You can't expect to not go through stuff, leader. You can't expect that. You see, if it comes to as a shock to you when the devil hits you, as a leader, as somebody really, a really, really called woman of God, then you gotta align yourself again. You have to find your place again and say, okay, this is what I'm called to. This is what it's gonna take. It's gonna take higher pain. It's gonna take a higher road of sacrifice, of pain in my life. This is what I need to go through this as a leader. And all these blessings will follow. All these blessings will follow you. You don't have to seek them. You don't have to find them. I came into this city and a little apartment. I was telling Myra that right across the Wyndham Hotel, we came into that city and it was a 4th floor bedroom apartment. And it was my husband and I, my little boy, he was 8 months old, and 5 missionaries. That's what they sent us with at that time. And I remember when we got here, we got to the city, and I remember we had a red-eye flight, because they're the cheaper flights. So we came on a red-eye flight, and the truck with the 5 guys or 4 guys had already driven the U-Haul with a few of our little things. We only had like a 1 little bedroom apartment. It was only 3 of us. And we came, and I remember coming through all this 4th Avenue, all the way through, and it was like 9 in the morning, and we're exhausted. And I'm just like, oh my God, what did I do? For those of you who ever pioneered like in a city that's not your city, it's like, it's not easy, because that's it. When you say bye to your family, it's bye. It's not like, oh, I'll see you later. No, it's just like bye forever. When I come around, I'll see you. But that's it. It's over. This was my mom's first grandchild. This was her first grandchild at 8 months. She's all excited. She's seen him, be born. And then it's just like watching her cry because her daughter's leaving with her grandchild. And we got here, and I remember we came up here. And New York, they don't prepare your apartment like, oh, this is your apartment, broom swept. No. We got there, and it was like, oh my God. It was ugly, ugly. And then they call them railroad apartments, where you have the bedroom way in the back. And then to get to the next bedroom, you got to walk through it, and then walk through that one, then get to the living room, and then walk to the kitchen. And then the restroom is right by the kitchen. One restroom, tiny restroom. And it was a small place. And I remember I just got there, and I was just like, I looked at my husband, and I go, this is it? And he goes, this is it. Because he had came, and rented it, And I go, you couldn't find something better? But that was it. That was it. And I remember that I was just there, and I'm just like, oh my goodness, like, okay, this is where God brought us. This is where it is, But as the years went by, I wasn't seeking a better place. I wasn't seeking luxury and material things. Those things just start to come. God starts to bless your finances. He starts to bless the income. The church started to grow and prosper, and we just started moving, and we went to another apartment, right straight in the ghetto, but we went to another apartment, big apartment. And we were there, gunshots and everything, but we were happy because it was bigger. And we were there with the home, and and we were happy, but that was like luxury to me, a bigger place in the ghetto, and it was like from glory to glory. But see, my point is that the Word of God says in Deuteronomy 28:2, it says that all these blessings will come on you. They will come on you. You don't gotta seek them. You don't gotta look for them, leader. You don't gotta, you who are being called to go out and take a city, and you've been challenged by the Lord from your pastors, you don't have to be seeking this stuff. It will come to you. It will come to you as the time goes by, as you pay a price. It doesn't come easy. And as I close, the price of being a target is a price that us leaders need to pay as well. Of being a target. In Judges 6:11, you won't find it on your screens, but we see the story of Gideon. And Gideon, he was hiding. He was hiding because he was being attacked by the Midianites. And he went to hide, and he was threshing out the wheat inside of the winepress. He went inside. Now, there's a lot to the story. We can go on here, but it's a whole other message. But my point is that he was hiding because he didn't want to be a target. He didn't want to be hit in any way. He didn't want to be attacked in any way. So he was in there and he was threshing the wheat and making provision for his family and making sure that they had of what they would need to eat. You know, meanwhile, the enemy was out there looking for him. And as leaders, we need to understand, as I get a piano, we need to understand that we are going to be a target. We are going to be a target. As soon as they said to me, this retreat, can you host it? And I said, yes. I was like, okay, yeah, okay. I know what it takes because we did this in 2008. I know the price it takes to put a retreat together. I know that Myra was going to call me. I knew that. She was going to call me and we're going to get this going. And right away, we became a target. Right away, the enemy starts getting loose on us. As a church, as individuals, personally. And it's easy to get disillusioned and it's easy to get discouraged and say, oh, you know, what is the need for me to be going through all this to host a retreat? But the devil sees further. He sees the victory that comes out of this, but the Lord does too. The Lord sees it. And we become targets. And many times we as leaders, or you who are called to leadership or a great calling in your life, we run from this type of leadership and we hide like Gideon. And we say, as long as mine are okay and I'm not a target, then I'm good. As long as me and mine and my children and my husband and all those around me are fine, then it's okay. Let havoc take place. But right here, I'm providing for mine, I'm threshing my wheat, and I'm making sure that I'm not being hit, that I'm not going to be killed, or that anything that is mine is destroyed. And that mentality is the mentality that limits us. That mentality is a mentality that doesn't let us grow our churches. That mentality is a mentality that doesn't let us grow our ministries. That mentality is the one that is holding us back from saying yes to the Lord in any particular ministry, or maybe even along with your husband to take a city or do something. My husband was telling me that nowadays there's more pastors going out worldwide over the age of 40 years old, but nothing under than that. In other words, there's no more young people going out. There's no more young people taking, that step of faith anymore, or taking cities anymore, worldwide, not just in our ministry. But nowadays, pastors and people that go out, this recent couple that just went out to Chicago, they're in their 40s already with kids, but they're in their 40s. Very rarely do you see somebody taking a city that's young. I mean, like a pioneering city. There's one thing to be a missionary in the United States. Because a missionary in the United States is fairly, easy. You're in the States. When you got to go out of the country and really go and really make a difference out there somewhere you don't know, that's a whole other ballgame. I'm talking about pastoring, taking a city nowadays under the age of 40. It's not real anymore. It's not real because there's all these preconditions that we set. These preconditions of, well, who's going to pay me? How are we going to provide for me? Well, the devil's going to hit us. I'm going to lose my children. I'm going to lose, my mind. I'm going to lose everything that I have, that I worked for. You see, and we don't have that anymore. We don't have that. It's very rare now. And in the early stages of our ministry, we've been going around for 50 years now. The early stages of our ministry, that's all you had was young families. You had Pastor Ed, you had Sister Mitzi, you had Steve and Josie Pineda. You had all these couples, I could name them. All these couples that went out with young children, young, and they were out taking cities. And they were saying, I'll be a target, I'll be there, I'm going to put myself out, and I'm going to make a difference, I'm going to be a leader, I'm going to make the change that God has called me to make. Gideon didn't want to be a target as you stand this morning. We want to stand on the down low. We want to stay down here where I'm not hit. We just seen this Vegas shooting. Remember the shooting in Vegas? And you see all the video footage. What do you see? Everybody's down here. down on the bottom. They don't want to get hit. Everybody's on the floor and they're scrambling everywhere. Nobody wants to get hit. Nobody wants to be the target. But little do you know that even on the floor you get hit. Even on the floor you're a target. The way that man, that guy was going, for 10 minutes shooting, whatever time he was, I mean, you were going to get shot on the bottom and on the top and everywhere if you were on site. And as long as you're serving the Lord, whether you keep it low and you don't want to be on the top and you don't want to you're going to get hit. You're going to get hit. You're going to get fired at. Your kids are still going to probably not be saved, even if you're not right with the Lord and doing what God's called you to do. There's no way of knowing. But you're protected. You're better off doing what God's called you to do and leading what you should lead. And having God on your side and God's favor because you're being obedient, than living on the down low so that you won't get hit. Lastly, Dr. Miles Monroe, the late Dr. Miles Monroe said, he goes, I want to die empty. These were his words. You remember he was like in a plane crash and he died. But those, as a leader and a teacher that he was, he said, I want to die empty. As a leader, I want to die empty. I want everything of me to spill out. Everything God gave me just to come out. And a lot of us sometimes we're not spilled out yet. But there's so much in us that we haven't put out enough. We're not empty. We're so full of gifts, full of talents. We have Betty under us. We have, all this education under us. We have all this knowledge and so much know-how, and we're full. We're full. You're so full. And you're not empty. Empty inside. You have to empty yourself out. And Dr. Miles Monroe said that. He goes, I want to die empty. I want to die completely empty. We have Jesus. When Jesus died on the cross, he said, it is finished. It is done. It is finished. I poured myself out. I'm done. A esto vine. This is what I came for. And God created you for something, and you're holding out. You're holding out. You got everything in you, and then we easily criticize everybody else who's taking the stand, but we're not doing what we got to do. Paul said, I have finished the race. I have fought the good fight. I finished. I did what I have to do. You know the story of Paul? Everything he did, and he put himself out. I mean, countless times you've heard stories about him. And this is the attitude we have to have as leaders. Of those of you who are called to ministry. I know it's not everybody. I know that. It's a certain cluster group of women that are called to leadership, to a new caliber of leadership. A new caliber. And many times our churches are the way they are because we're not at another caliber of leadership. Of these points that I mentioned today. Of the different mentality we have to have. Of the broad understanding of our evolving times. You see, and we have to be able to say these things. I have finished. I'm empty. It's done. I did what I could. See, and that is my challenge for you today. My challenge for you as a leader, as somebody that responded to the call of God one time in her life. That said, yes, Lord, and I received that call from God in a conference. It was a Mexico conference that I went to, and I remember standing in the altar, and Pastor Sonny preached a visionary message, and he was calling out women, men, and it got full, the altar. And little did I know my husband was on the other side, but he was a man in the home or rehab, in the home, something like that. And I was on this side. And I received my calling. I was 13 years old, and God called me, and he said, I separated you. I have called you to full-time ministry. I didn't know what, but I knew I was called. And I stood very close to my pastor's wife, very close to her. And I was just feeding off of her, and I was just like watching her kids and doing everything for her and moving with her. And she taught me a lot of things. And I knew. And when the time came, then, you always marry the home director, right? I married the home director. And then the home director marries, the other home director's daughter. And then we came together. And then we came over here, and then we opened the home, and then we've been here. But my point is that it wasn't that calling where God separated my life, and I knew I had to be different. I knew I had to separate myself from those who didn't want that type of leadership in their lives. I knew it, and that is where God is separating us today and calling us today. And so as we close our eyes and we sing a worship song today, just close your eyes and just ask the Lord, whatever was for me, God.
I surrender.
Le agradecemos su sintonía, esperamos que esta palabra haya sido de bendición. Le invitamos a que pueda compartir a través de sus redes sociales con sus amigos y familiares, haciendo clic en cualquiera de los botones que aparecen en su pantalla. Dios los bendiga.